Hey everyone, my name is Azim and I'm a career advocate at Career and Talent Development. I am a junior studying mechanical engineering, and today what we're going to go over is resume and cover letter writing. So let's get started off. I know this is towards the end of recruiting season for a lot of people considering summer internships, but it's still useful to know these tips for A, future, and B, if people are open to fall and spring co-op positions, people are still hiring for those. So it's still super useful to have these tips down in case they don't. So right now we're just going through the EC newsletter. These are old screenshots, but keep your eye out, engineering students, for emails like this, because we often have new events that are taking place, whether it's career fairs, interview workshops, special events with employers, or whether it's job postings or other events that are taking place by the Career and Talent Development Office at EC. All right, so starting on resume writing. Now we see don't judge a book by its cover, but unfortunately that's what a lot of people, employers included, have to judge you off of on first base. So it's important to have a good cover to show in the first place. So when we're talking about the learning objectives for this workshop, we're going to be learning like the intention of writing a resume. So like really the purpose, and that's going to help us get through the little details like appearances, formatting, and styles and components of the resume itself. So NACE, or the National Association of Colleges and Employers, created a list of career readiness competencies, and there are 7 areas which employers mainly look at for competency, in which they decide as factors based on whether or not to hire a candidate. And these are oral written communication, teamwork and collaboration, information technology application, critical thinking, problem solving, leadership, professionalism, and work ethic, career management. And the last one, which is a newer one, is called global intercultural fluency. So Alejandro, in what order would you personally rank these skills? Like just name your top 3.
Yeah, my top 3, if I had to choose, would be leadership, collaboration, and critical thinking.
Okay, so let's see if the employers as part of NACE rank the same way you did. So critical thinking was, and this is from a scale of 0 to 5. So critical thinking ranked 4.7, professionalism and work ethic also ranked at 4.7. So we kind of have a tie there. There's teamwork at 4.6, and oral written communication, IT application, then followed by leadership, career management, and global intercultural fluency. Now, of course, they depend differently for different kind of teams. So, there's not one solid answer, but it's just that like this is the average of many answers put together. So going on to what exactly these categories mean in and of themselves. So critical thinking and problem solving is to exercise sound reasoning, to analyze issues, make decisions, and really overcome problems, or think, maybe at a second or a third order or level behind a problem in and of itself, rather than just, the first degree of it. Oral and written communication, this should be pretty clear. It's to articulate thoughts and ideas clearly and effectively, to really communicate effectively to the people within and even outside of your organization. And teamwork and collaboration does have to do with that, but it has also to do with your ability to represent diverse cultures, races, people of different backgrounds, and be able to still work with them, and even when it comes to different viewpoints. Then is digital technology. Is when you leverage existing digital technology ethically and efficiently in order to complete your tasks. So like different softwares you're using, whether it's programs, new tools that are coming up, and skills that you're aware of within your industry. So then comes leadership, which is leading teams and leveraging the strengths of others and yourself, of course, to achieve common goals, and then using your interpersonal skills to develop both yourself and others. And then comes professionalism and work ethic, which is to, it's a set of habits, I would say, put together, which is punctuality, communication, working productively, working out your time effectively, and understanding the impact of nonverbal communication on your professional work image and how that plays off into your character and your image. Then is career management, which is to basically leverage your strengths and knowledge and experiences, and be able to really put that to the most effective use possible to the position that you're given and to the goals that you've set out for yourself, or to the goals of your organization, necessary for your and their professional growth. And the last one is global intercultural fluency, which does have, it takes from communication, which is to basically value and respect people from different backgrounds, whether you disagree, whether they might be familiar or different from you, but to still have that respect and communication regardless. And now getting into the resume workshop. So defining a resume would be to say, a brief written account of personal, educational, and professional qualifications and experience. And we'll get to that in just a second. So the reason why we write resumes is for them to be our professional marketing tool, for them to be our professional face or portfolio online, and prove that we're qualified for whatever job it is that we're applying to, and demonstrate our communication skills to our employers. And through that, prove to them our knowledge and skills and abilities and experiences. And obviously, once we're able to do all of those things put together, we should hopefully be able to secure an interview with the company. So Alejandro, or actually, let's have Claudia for this one if she's there. Claudia, take a guess on how long on average an employer reads a resume.
I was told 2 seconds, from 2 to 5 seconds.
2 to 5 seconds. Okay, let's see how close you are. You're somewhere close to the range. So it's between 6 to 8 seconds. Some people say 2 to 5 seconds. This is the average is 6 to 8. Some people say 11. But the point being is that it's a very short time span. And when it's that short of a time span, you really have not very long to capture the interest of whoever it is that's reading your document and that would be, maybe interested in hiring you. So because of that, we're going to talk about creating a winning resume and what you would need for that. So the first thing is easy to read and consistent. So when we say that, we mean, the recommended font and margins that we say are like Times New Roman, Calibri. Really, it doesn't have to be these two, but it should just be something that's super legible and that's it doesn't look strange or super different right off the bat. It should be something that's familiar, and these two are two very commonly used ones, which is why we suggest them. So as part of being legible, text shouldn't be too small, neither should it be too large as well. So 10 to 12 point, and margins between 1 inch to 0.5 inches is all right. You shouldn't have margins way too narrow to the point where you're just squeezing in information, and you shouldn't just have them too wide to the point where you just struggle to fit your entire resume in a page. And then here's another really important point, to have action verbs and keywords at the end, in the beginning and throughout your bullet points. We'll get to this in a second. Here's one mistake that I see people make a lot, is using personal pronouns in their resume. So like, I developed this thing, I worked in this team, this was my project. We don't want those words in the resume. The entire document should be written in third person. And the one-page thing, I would say, goes for undergraduates more than, people like who have been in industry for 5 years, 7 years, or who just completed maybe their PhD and they have several publications and whatnot. So for a lot of undergraduate students, we normally don't have the experience necessary to go beyond the second page of the resume. So talking about matching job descriptions, ATSs or applicant tracking systems. Now, what these are basically, they're softwares that scan for keywords in a resume and scan for the same keywords in the job description or the ones that the employer has set out. And what they do is they just create a profile of how well you match the job description. So if there are industry buzzwords and jargon, or like there's words that are used within the description itself of the job, or that the employer set out, it's going to match to see how many of those are in your resume. So the example that we see here is a bullet point which starts off with manage customer database, product upgrades, product updates and upgrades. These are all things that can be taken directly from the job position, as we can see right here. So this is an example job description on Handshake, and then all of the responsibilities over here are what you can essentially take from to increase your SEO for the applicant tracking system. So you could take any particular words here, like develop manufacturable things, design review, work cooperatively, etc. And then here's another example position, which you can just take words from and then substitute on your resume. So a word of advice, different job positions that you apply to are going to have different keywords on them, and so you should slightly change up your resume and change up those keywords in every position for every single different job position that you apply for. So this is just like a visual on how applicant tracking systems work. So it'll receive yours along with thousands of other resumes that want the same position, and then it'll tell them how relevant your resume is, and then maybe only the top maybe 10% are actually read by a human being and then decided on whether or not to interview for. So let's go on into the two different types of resumes. There's chronological and there's functional. The difference between these two are largely are going to rely on the person writing the resume themselves. So like what would be more relevant for which person. So a chronological resume, or reverse chronological, should I say, is one in which your experiences are listed out from most recent to least recent. So if I'm studying at FIU right now, that would be on the top. and any degree that I completed before, whether it's my associates, another previous undergrad degree that I did, that would be below it. And then another degree that I did would be below it. So that's used to describe experiences directly to one like prospective job. And it highlights consistency between jobs or between roles. So like, for example, Alejandro, if you've been doing biomedical engineering stuff for a long time and you've continued with your engineering experiences from maybe being involved in one club freshman year to being involved in two, and then, you know, having a lead position to now being on the e-board, like you would show that consistently throughout your resume, and that would make sense for a chronological one, which is why it's more popular among undergraduate students.
That's right.
Or entry level. So when it comes to functional, that's more when you base it on all the different types of skills that you've accrued. And they don't have to be in chronological order, rather that you can sort it out on the importance of the skill that you'd be looking for the job. So whether the job that you're applying for needs a variety of skills, or if you've worked in a bunch of different industries, you know, maybe you were military before, maybe you worked in aerospace and then in hospitality and then something else, and you developed a whole range of skill sets throughout each of them, then you might want to list it as a functional resume if that could help your application going forward. So this is an example of a chronological resume in which we have you know, the most recent experience up top going all the way down to the less recent ones below. And then here's a functional resume example where we have, you know, skills and accomplishments starting off from problem solving, then teamwork and interpersonal ones, recognitions, computer and language skills. And these could have all been as part of different experiences. And then we have some work experiences at the bottom. So to break it down into now standard components of a resume, we want to start off with personal identification so that, you know, people know who you are and how to contact you. An objective or professional summary. Again, this is optional. It doesn't have to be on your resume, but it's good if you're able to put it out there very exactly, very precisely. Then is your education, skills, experience, and any additional categories you wanna keep on there. So here's an example resume, and then we're gonna break it down from the top to the bottom. So when we talk about your personal identification, we have your name. Your address is optional. It doesn't have to be on there. And the reason why we don't recommend that, you know, you always keep it on there is because if you're uploading your resume to LinkedIn and Handshake and other, you know, professional social media platforms, it's no longer just a private document. It's now a public document to where anyone on the platform can see it. And so your employer will ask for your address later on in the hiring process anyway, and you can give it to them at that time. However, it tends to become a privacy issue for some people where they don't want to necessarily share their address, you know, on LinkedIn or on a social media platform like that. So an address is optional. You should definitely put your preferred phone number and your professional email, and then any link to your LinkedIn or any professional websites, whether it's your personal professional website, if it's your GitHub, if you're into like computer science and coding, etc. So here's just a couple of examples on how you can have it. I see people do them in more creative ways, you know, aligning something to the left and something else to the right, playing around with a couple different colors. You can be creative with this, but these are just a couple examples that we have just off the top. So now we're going to talk about objectives. So Alejandro, which objective stands out to you more once you read these two?
Sure. So I'm reading the one on the top. Students seeking a full-time job to utilize learned skills at an education at your company. So it's not indicating what skills and what education and which company. It just says your company. So the bottom one would be more detailed. Specifically, tells you the position that they want. Also, the knowledge that they apply, the theoretical knowledge and the research, doing what specifically at your company, economic research. So I get a better idea of what the student is going to be precisely applying for or what their interests align. So maybe I can check with my database and see what positions are available for that.
I don't think I have much to add to that. You just covered it, but you are correct. Like that's perfectly on the ball. The second one is definitely the better objective because, like you said, it outlines the company, it outlines what skills they want, and it outlines exactly what position they would want in the first place. So one of the things, the basic thing I would say for writing an objective is that if it's already communicated by the fact that you're applying, you don't need to state it. Like for example, the fact that you're applying already means that you're seeking a full-time job to utilize skills at the company. However, they may not necessarily know exactly what position you're applying to if they haven't, you know, like gone through that. Or they might not know exactly what it is your personal goals are from the position. And this is a good way of like very particularly specifying that. So in the case that you're able to do that and you want to do that, you can go ahead and write an objective. And here's a sample summary of qualifications. So this is basically when you have a couple years or significant experience in different areas or different skills, and you just want to outline them as a summary over the top of your resume, in addition to, of course, writing about them in your experience points themselves. Again, it's not required, but if you have it and if you feel like it would help like accrue like all that information into one specific section better, then you can go ahead and put it on the top of your resume as well. So moving on to education, the things that are super important that you need to have in the education section are definitely the name of the institution where you're studying at. So in this case, it would be Florida International University, city, state, and what degree you're earning, and exactly the name of your degree. So for example, if you're studying biomedical engineering, you shouldn't just put major : biomedical engineering, and even worse, major : BME. You want to have, like we talked about applicant tracking systems earlier, sometimes for specific positions, applicant tracking systems have not just keywords, but key phrases. So they might just have a key phrase as Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering. And then if you just put major biomedical engineering or major BME, you automatically don't have that match. And if that's a required match for the job position, you could be automatically rejected for the position just because you didn't follow like the key phrase. So make sure to state your entire major: Bachelor of Science in Mechanical, in Biomedical, in Electrical Engineering. And then have your graduation month and year. You don't necessarily have to put which year you started or which month you started, but your expected graduation should be on there. And if your GPA is above a 3.0, then we would recommend keeping that on your resume as well. And if you want to put additional items onto, like underneath that, you can, including a minor that you have, any certifications that you might be getting, a concentration, being part of the honors college, any scholarships, study abroads, etc. So wait. All right, here we are. So Claudia, can you answer true or false to this question? I'll be able to get a job even though I don't have the experience for it.
I believe true.
True, and why?
Because even if you don't have the experience, what matters is what you want to do with what you have, you know.
Perfect. That is correct. Yeah. So what Claudia said actually speaks to this question over here, like what should Barista Rory highlight? So for example, if you're a college student and you've mainly worked, some minimum wage jobs, like whether it's at Starbucks, whether it's at Wendy's, whether it's at, any other place that's like absolute entry level, maybe you've only been working like hospitality as a waitress, maybe you've been doing, it's something else that essentially doesn't directly tie into your position. The things that you should highlight are every single job, every single experience comes with skills of its own. Now, they might not be software skills that directly pertain to them, but they're skills nonetheless. And so you want to figure out what skills that were in your previous position you can leverage onto your resume and be able to put yourself out there for the upcoming position you're applying for. So on to the next slide. Okay, here we are. So when you're a barista, you have a lot of interpersonal and customer service skills, since that's what you're doing pretty much all day. You have recognition of sales, of attendance, possibly handling cash, organizational and multitasking skills. And these are all softer skills that do get transferred from one position to another. So if you're working in an engineering position that, like maybe it's a sales engineering position or something which requires you to speak to customers or clients, you can definitely leverage these skills, or something that requires you to be in a team. So here is an example of a work experience section. And what we're going to talk about is like the formatting of these now. So we recommend 3 to 4 bullet points, and it's better to actually just keep them in bullet points. I see some people just like go into the next line and start typing regardless. It's easier to keep them in bullet points because it's easier for whoever's reading your resume to separate out between every single part of the experience. So have 3 to 4 bullet points per section. You don't want to obviously overshoot it by putting maybe 10, 12 things in one, and you don't want to have an experience in which you just list out maybe one thing or one function of your job. So number 1 has bullets, and what you want to format this with is your position title. So, you were a student teller, you were a front desk agent, then your company name, city, state, and the duration of your employment, which should be to the right. And you can also put the city and state you can align that to the right as well if you want. So if you notice, the first word of every single bullet point over here, you'll see that they're all verbs: process, maintain, open, recognize, verify, ensure. So the common thing is, and then here we have quantitative details right here. So award and recognize as employee of the month, tutor average of 5 to 10 middle school students. So here are some questions to answer when you write a bullet point. What did you do? How did you do it? And then, the smaller questions that get answered within that. Okay, how many people was it? How many people did you work with? What kind of softwares did you use, etc.? And what was the outcome of what you did? So going on to additional categories, which you can have after education and work experience, is languages and computer skills. And this is especially important for majors maybe like electrical engineering, computer science, but then also for BME. I'm sure you guys do a lot of MATLAB from what I've heard, so having that on your resume and any other relevant skills would definitely be helpful. And then including research projects. So I'm assuming once you're done, Alejandro, with senior, that's going to be on your resume, or it might already be there since you completed senior 1.
Yeah, it's already there, but I need to go back and edit it. But pretty much all these projects, they add up to a lot of things you can talk about during resume tip. And or a recruiter, and they'll just go down your resume, they read it, and they're like, oh, you did this, and you're like, and you just start listing them off one by one.
And to add to that, to add to something we discussed earlier, now that I think of it, a lot of people say, oh, wait, yeah, I haven't got an internship and it's already my junior year. So, I don't have a lot of experience, but what can I say? Well, you've taken engineering classes this whole time. And as part of those engineering classes, I'm sure if you're in your junior or senior year, you worked on a couple projects between now and then, or you've been part of some student organization or some student club, and you've worked on some projects or some outreach program or whatever it is with them. So you can definitely list that on your resume and leverage that to the maximum extent possible as well, if you haven't had a internship or like an entry-level position that's related to your field yet. So then again, activities and leadership, whether you're on the e-board of some club, if you volunteered on or off campus, any professional organizations you've been part of, honors or awards that you've received, training and certifications, especially in things related to your field. And then there comes international and international experience, which is like studying abroad, any research you've done abroad. So these are all things that you can add additionally to your resume. So Alejandro, do we need to write references available upon request at the bottom of the resume?
So this is not the 90s. So pretty much the employer assumes that you're going to give them the references once they request it, and you have it ready. And if they ask for it, then you have it there. If not, don't worry about it, because the proof is in the pudding. And if to them, if they already have enough proof for you being the perfect candidate, and you're in.
Perfect. Yep, that is correct. If an employer needs to ask for resume for references, they don't need you to say that on the resume. They'll ask for it anyway. So that would be false. So here's just a couple tips for references. Again, you don't need to write that on your resume. Ask for permission. Don't just list out someone's name and number or like email, and then a call just comes in and they're like, hey, can you tell us more about Alejandro? And they were not expecting that call in the first place. So ask for permission from your references, be it your past employers, be it people that you've worked on with projects, etc. And then you can, sometimes they'll ask you in the job portal itself, or sometimes they'll ask you to upload them as like a PDF or something. So you can list on a separate page like 3 to 5 professional references. You can provide a name and a title for them, their organization, their phone number, their email, and then you can also add how long you've known them and in what capacity you've known them. So moving on from that to what not to put on a resume. Here are a couple mistakes and they might seem obvious, but some people still make them. Don't put your hobbies on a resume. Going to the gym 5 to 7 times a week is great, but an employer doesn't need to know that. High school information after freshman year of college, it's not necessary because it just becomes less relevant. And this counts for not only like the education section, but also for things you did in high school. You may have been involved in some club or some organization at your high school, but unless it's super, super relevant to what you're doing right now, chances are it's 2, 3, 4 years old. It's outdated information, and you want to put what new things you've been up to in college instead. Your marital status, religious and political identity, needless to say, social security number, don't put that on a resume. A photograph, any physical characteristics, sexual orientation, disability, and previous terminations. These might seem like very, very obvious things not to put on a resume, but trust me, I've seen people make these mistakes, and so that's why we put them out there.
One asterisk I think we can put is on hobbies, and I made that mistake before, putting obvious hobbies that shouldn't be there. But one situation where you could list hobbies is if they apply directly to the field you want to work at. So for example, I know a good friend of mine, he builds computers, and so that's his hobby. But if he wants to be a computer engineer, then that's perfect hobby for getting a computer engineering job.
That's a really good caveat to the point. And so I would say that in a section where you have projects, you can have professional projects, which are things that you've worked on in school or as part of some organization or research. But then you can also have personal projects. So like your friend that works on and that builds computers, who's a computer engineering student, he can for sure list that as a personal project or as multiple personal projects on his resume if he wants to. So he would put hobbies, just not in like a hobby section where he puts other things like basketball. So
you got it.
Yeah. But here are the things that you should include: a link to your LinkedIn, personal website, projects and pictures. And you might want to put a touch of color on there. Like, this doesn't mean, have your entire resume multicolored. It means, if you want to have your name or just some extra sections in like a little splash of color, add a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, whatever it is that you want to put out there, you can do that. Just because looking at like, 100 black and white documents a day might get boring, and your little splash of color might be what appeals to the human being reading it at the end of the day. But again, be careful with images and adding pictures to your resume. So, thoughts on this example resume right here?
I'm trying to wonder where it begins and where it ends.
It has bird in it.
His birth right here. Yeah. So again, this is an example of a resume which some people might think it looks cool, or it looks like overly, like, very minimalistic. And so I'll see sometimes people uploading not exactly this, but like resumes like that are super minimalistic and use just a lot of visuals to represent things, or like timelines exactly like that. And the reason why it doesn't always work, and it's not necessarily a good idea, is because there's so much more that you can have on your resume. It doesn't give me a very good detailed explanation to anything here. So he's just compared web technologies, like different skills, but I can't exactly see anything that the person's done in enough detail to know the extent of their skills with regards to that. And then also the fact that they have like hobbies and things like here, and I love tea and like birth and whatnot. But the point is that it doesn't give a good enough visual or a good enough explanation to any of their experiences. So again, to summarize everything that we've talked about, have your resume an easy to read document, legible, highlight skills and achievements, make it a good marketing piece. And the last point, like we discussed when we talked about applicant tracking systems, tailor it to every single position that you apply for. And now, do we have any questions before we move on to the cover letter?
Yeah, more like an add-on. So there's usually some differences between the standard industry resume and the federal resume. And so I believe one of them is that for the federal resume, you do want to have references.
Okay, yes. So there are caveats like that that you'd want to incorporate between your different resumes that you apply to. So if there's something that's required for federal resumes that's not on regular ones, again, take that into, and that goes into tailoring your resume for every different position. So yeah. And now talking about cover letters. All right, so why would you send a cover letter? Because often it's not always required on an application. So a cover letter isn't meant to be a substitute for a resume, for a transcript, for any other thing that you submit to an organization. It's meant to be supplemental. And the reason why we do it is to show that, to get that extra foot in the door within whatever position it is that you're applying for, granted that they will read the cover letter, and show them that you've done your research into the organization, into the position, and that you and your skills would be a good match for them. So, walking through the rough format of a cover letter, or a basic template for a cover letter, we want to have at the minimum a heading, an opening paragraph, body paragraphs, 1 or 2, and then be able to close out. So before you write a cover letter, you want to have a couple things in mind about the organization, and that comes from researching it. So, go on their website, research their needs, their missions, their goals, research projects that they're working on, etc., and discover how your skills and your background connect to what it is that they might be looking for. And then when it comes to, that's the organization on one hand, and then is your individual position. So again, after you've already read your job description for the resume, but read it again and figure out what are the required keywords and qualifications that your responsibilities include, and how does everything that you've done so far, all your experiences, tie in to help you in that role. So the organization wants to know what you bring to the table, what you can do for them in this cover letter. So the structure of writing the letter, or you can even write it in an email if you're sending it out to an individual person or your hiring manager. It would be, of course, why you're writing to them, how you're qualified, why you're right for the job, and why you like the company, and then any next steps or a follow-up. That's the same thing as closing out. So just a couple tips when writing it. You want to refer to where it is that you found out about the job, whether it is that you found it out on LinkedIn or Handshake, somebody within the company mentioned it to you and you have a connection within there, and then you viewed the qualifications and you believed you were a match. Then is supporting details. So prove your claims with examples. So instead of just saying that I am brilliant at SolidWorks, you could say that my coursework in SolidWorks, as well as a project that I worked on in sophomore year in order to build and design an engine part or something like that, and you could describe your experience like that in order to give it an example. And then you want to tie the qualifications to the requirements of the position, and really fill out the gaps that you can't fill out on your resume just for the sake of space or for the sake of time. And then you want to close out, which is offer to meet for an interview, maybe refer to something on your resume for your contact details, and then close out with your final pitch. And okay, so like on a resume, you'd want to have contact information on the cover letter as well. You can put your address on a cover letter, so because you're sending this directly to the organization or to your manager. So street address, city, state, zip, and then would be the name of your contact person, title, organization, again, street address, city, state, zip. A lot of people would say, well, I don't know the name of my manager. I don't know the person it is that I'm writing to. That's fine, and that's understandable, in which case you could say, dear hiring manager, to whom it may be concerned, or to whom it may concern. But it's always even better if you're not only writing that cover letter, but you also go that extra mile and you find out exactly who the hiring manager for the position that you're applying to is, and then write it specifically for them using their name. So then the first paragraph is, again, who you are, introducing yourself, and what you're applying for. So you're graduating from FIU, you're a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering, and how you heard about them, and you would like to apply for flight controls at a certain company, and then you just believe you have the skill sets and the knowledge to help in the position. And after that, we're including a school and a degree, a graduation date, where you heard about the position from, what you're applying to, and what you have that would benefit the company. And we're explaining that further in the second paragraph. So we're talking about an internship over here, in which you maybe tested and designed aerospace products, and you were able to coordinate activities with other and resolve customer reports of technical problems. Essentially what this is taking your past experiences and it's really fleshing them out into how exactly they would be relevant for the position that you're applying for right now, and not just listing them out like the way you would list them on a resume. So making them directly applicable. Again, another thing you want to do here is use keywords like the example that's underlined there, solving marketing problems. Your client would benefit because of the expertise and knowledge about consultants, etc. So again, what skills did you use, and benefit-focused terminology. Again, like on your resume, quantify as much as you can, give real life examples, 50 plus members, I worked on X project, etc. So the third paragraph is talking about you and the company. So what you would do there, why you particularly like the company, why you like the position it is that you're applying for. And this would be why, not why you're a good fit for them, since you've already talked about that. This would be why they're a good fit for you. So again, it shows that you've done your research and why you're interested in working with the company, and how you and the company, like in terms of culture, goals, values, or interests, make a good fit. And the last paragraph is talking about closing out. And it's just essentially wrapping up everything that you've said in the previous paragraphs, that you believe your skills would be a benefit to the company and you would love to follow up. And then you can put your preferred method of contact, whether it's your email, your contact number over there, and make sure to thank them for their time. So here we have just a brief overview of what to put on there. So the do's and don'ts of a cover letter. Do address the cover letter to a person, like we said. Find out your hiring manager's name if you can. Customize each letter per job application. Do your research into the company. Tone it down on spell check. Obviously, proofread your cover letter once, twice, 3 times if you have to. And also, don't run on. Keep it up to a page. Don'ts would be, don't write one cover letter for 17 positions you're applying to. Don't keep it generic. Don't keep a single one. Again, try not to write dear sir, madam, or to whom it may concern. Find out who you're applying to, write to them. And don't copy exactly from your resume. You want to take experiences from your resume, but be able to personalize them to what's written in the job description and to be able to explain further. Don't include bullet points in a cover letter. And of course, coming from the do's, don't have grammatical errors or spelling errors. So just to close out, talking about Handshake. So Handshake is, I'm pretty sure most people who are going to watch this know about it already, but for those that don't, it's basically the LinkedIn version of college students in FIU, where you can apply for internships, full-time and part-time jobs. You can also do various other things like create appointments with career coaches and career advisors at your specific school. So in our case, the School of Engineering, and you can find employers for on-campus interviews as well, and find out events that your career and talent development office is doing, whether they be career fairs, professional development events, things for headshots, etc. So these are the amount of jobs that were offered on Handshake as of a recent survey, and out of which over almost 3,000 were full-time and 724 were internships. And just a couple of services for students and alumni that Handshake offers, or that we offer, are career internships and graduate school fairs, employer info sessions, networking events, career coaching, internship coaching, online job searching, employability workshops, career development workshops, walk-in or now drop-in, now virtual drop-in programs. And that's what we have for today's presentation.